Hello, welcome to another edition of Prove All Things. I want to thank everybody who's joining us today, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, X, or on the CGI Digital Network app, whether that's on your phone, tablet, or television. We thank you for joining us live, and to everyone else watching or listening, we're glad to have you with us as well. I'm joined by co-host Mike James. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Jeff, doing okay? Good to see you this morning. I don't know if you caught the news this morning, that barge hitting a bridge in Baltimore. I actually used to drive over that bridge every once
Wow,
in a while.
wow.
So it's kind of shocking to see something like that happen when you've been over and back on that bridge a few times.
Definitely prayers for the ones who are, I guess they're looking for people. So hopefully there's some
Yeah,
people that they can find.
right, right.
Yeah,
But other than that, Jeff, doing well. I'm getting ready to head to Medina, Ohio this weekend. I'm going to speak to the church there and also do 3 Armor of God programs and a couple YouTube videos for our website.
wonderful. That sounds great. Look forward to seeing that from you there.
Thanks, thanks.
All right. Anything else, or we want to go ahead and bring in our guest?
That's about all I've got for today. I guess we're getting ready for the Holy Day season coming up next month, so we'll be talking a little bit about that moving forward.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, but we better go ahead and bring him in today because he's got a lot to cover. How you doing, Skip?
I'm good. I need to cover this bottom lip. My angioedema attacked me about 3 o'clock this morning, or it could have been Diane, but I think it was my angioedema. So I've got a big old fat
Yeah.
lip this
They
morning.
don't they don't ask you when you go to the hospital. Say, do you feel safe at home? Or
Everybody wonders why Diane has hung around for 51 years. Well, most people wonder why she hung around for 1 year, much less 51.
you grow on people, Skip.
I'm what is it? I'm a learned uh, uh, anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
okay.
I see Blake's going to be on here. I'm going to be talking from notes this morning. I'm not going to just walk around making stuff up.
Hmm.
So, uh,
He's laughing, Skip.
yeah, I
He's
always
laughing.
give Blake.
He's laughing with you.
Yeah.
So, Skip, why don't you just give a little background into this series that you started? Because we always get some new people on that don't know what you've been doing. So, if you could just address that a
Okay.
little bit.
Our home fellowship will tackle a subject every once in a while. And generally, they're long subjects. And we decided about 2 years ago to take a look at the prophets in the Old Testament, and it's interesting because it kind of melded into more of a historical um, uh, discussion about ancient Israel, uh, and so instead of going through all the prophets, which is what I was planning on doing, and what we talked about last time, I'm going at it more from a historical standpoint of what happened with ancient Israel and ancient Judah, and I,
Okay.
I attack this stuff, one line at a time, one verse at a time, one chapter at a time, and I had a lady one time tell me, I called her and asked her, I said, I need to ask your husband how he thinks I ought to handle next Sabbath's study. And she said, well, I'm really not the one to ask. I don't like your Bible studies anyway. So I thought, you sound like Mike James.
Come on, Skip. Okay.
But anyway, I have a lot of fun, as you all well know. But that's basically what it is. I've got some slides. As you all know, I put maps and
Hey, that's a
how you
really
like
nice
that one?
slide
Yeah.
right there. What's going on in that picture?
Well, this would be Jeroboam, King Jeroboam about to get in trouble uh, and
Okay.
offer a sacrifice, and Ahijah the prophet's going to come up and say some things to him that he doesn't like. That's kind of where we're starting today.
Okay.
So I'm ready when you all are.
All right, we're ready.
And as you all know, jump in, early and often, as they say. Okay, so I debated on whether to continue on the on the prophet side or go, but I've already told you that. So I'm going to start at the split, basically, of Israel and Judah. David has Saul's been replaced by David. David has died. Solomon has died, and Rehoboam, Solomon's son, is the king, and he gets into it with the tribes from the north because he refuses to back off on the taxes that his dad had placed on the Israelites when he was building the temple, and they didn't like that. So they said, "Well, we're going north. You all tend to your own tents." So that's where we're going to start. Um, we're still going to talk about writing and non-writing prophets as we come across them, and we're going to talk a little bit about a non-writing prophet today. And I want to. Hopefully, my clicker is going to work, Jeff. How do
Uh,
I?
you don't use the clicker. You should see where you can hit the little arrow key with your mouse
Okay,
on the screen to
right
go
there.
through. There you go.
Okay,
There you go.
this is a timeline. I think I
I
showed.
better zoom in on this one. This one's very busy. Here we go.
Nice. Yeah, that's good,
Yeah,
Jeff.
this is the timeline that we decided to use in our study. There's about 100, maybe 1,000 different timelines,
Mm-hmm.
and when you do a study like this, you got to pick one. You can't use all of them, and this is nice and pretty and in color. The top part is the northern tribes. You can see it starts with Jeroboam the first and goes to the end where Hoshea was the last king, and then the green line starts with Rehoboam, and you can see that the ancient Judah lasted a lot longer
Mm-hmm.
than. So anyway, that's the timeline that we have used in our study, and we're going to use it today. I don't know if I refer to it too much. So okay, first slide. Uh-oh. Well, that's okay. I'll read it. It says, "Now the man Jeroboam was a valiant warrior, and when Solomon saw the man was industrious, he appointed him over all the forced labor," and so on. And it came about, and this is when Ahijah the prophet came to Jeroboam and took his new cloak and ripped it into 12 pieces and gave him 10. Said, "These are going to be your families that you're king of, and I'm keeping God's keeping two for the south." So that's basically what's happening in this
Mm-hmm.
in this scripture. It says Ahijah took hold of them, and he's a non-writing prophet, and he's one that's not mentioned as a non-writing prophet. That's one of the things we talked about last time. There's so many prophets that come in, make a comment, and then leave, and you don't hear from them again. So here's Ahijah doing his job that God has given him, and here's where he took the 10 pieces and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And in verse 33, here's why I'm doing it: because they've forsaken me. They've worshipped Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, Milcom, god of the sons of Ammon, and so on. And they've not walked in my ways, doing what is right in my sight and observing my statutes. In other words, they didn't do what King David led them to do. And as you all know, and I'm sure 99% of the people online with us know, that they gradually got away from worshiping God. The whole nation did. When David was the king, he didn't allow the people to worship other gods. When Solomon was the king, he married a bunch of foreign women, and he allowed them to.
I think I think we lost Skip for a second.
Yeah, I thought it was me, Jeff, but I think
Yeah.
Skip is frozen right now. But the point that he's bringing up here, hopefully he'll come back in here. Uh, but I think the point he's bringing up here, Jeff, is that God did allow some time there before he did do anything about the problems that were going on in Israel. I think even before David, we could say with King Saul, there were some problems also. You get these good kings, these bad kings throughout, Israel's and Judah's history. And we see that God does allow time for prophets to work and try
Hmm.
to wake the people up. But eventually, God does bring some punishment to bear, as I think we're going to be reading about in this particular verse 33. Definitely addresses that. Would you agree?
Hmm. I'm looking just to see about Skip here, and I just see a blank screen with Skip.
Yeah, this is the joy of live programming.
Right.
But one thing that works well, Jeff, is when you do have more than one individual, you can continue
Yeah.
to work the subject matter a little bit. So hopefully, do you want me to give him a call and just see what's going on, or do you want me to
Yeah. Let's go
just
and give
kind
him
of
a
do a
call.
song and dance until he comes
Yeah.
back?
Let's give him a call. Let's see what's going on and see if we can bring him back in here.
Okay,
Right
let
now,
me.
Skip, if you're watching, we can't see or hear you, and
Yeah.
that's we prefer to be able to see and hear you.
Yeah, that definitely would help,
Yeah.
especially since he's presenting today. And I'm just gonna find his phone number here, give him a
Yeah.
call.
I think maybe the best thing may be for him to restart his computer.
Yeah, why don't you come go out completely, Skip, and then come back in? We'll see what happens. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Just reuse the same link. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay, so he's going to try to link back in, Jeff.
Hmm.
And something that strikes me about Israel and Judah's history, Jeff, is I'm looking at the United States today, and
Yeah.
I'm hearing about states talking about seceding, and there's conversation out
Yeah.
there due to different reasons than exactly why Israel broke up. But I just find it interesting that you have this going on in other countries today. In Sudan, there's kind of been a civil war.
Mhm.
There's North Sudan and South Sudan, and these types of issues are part of human history. Going back thousands of years, and even into the present day today, we have these types of problems with nations breaking up, nations coming back together, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I guess in our country we're so divided that it seems like that something could happen. It's more reasonable to think of states seceding because they differ so highly with whatever's going on in the central government.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm just looking at the comments right now, and
Yeah.
Life Lessons is mentioning Solomon getting involved with people outside of his faith, and I think
Yeah.
that's a key phrase there. Outside of the faith, that's
Yeah.
what God was concerned with, was mixing with other religions, not necessarily different colored people or different ethnic people. The problem was the religion of these other people, because we know from biblical history that when people did become part of Israel, whether they were outsiders, they could be brought in if they believed what Israel was believing and became part of that community. It didn't matter who they were. Skip, speak, speak.
Hello, hello. I'm
Oh,
back.
Okay,
Skip is
good. We
back.
were doing a little song and dance.
That's okay. That's okay. Jeff, where's my PowerPoint?
You'll have to hit the plus button
All right.
and then go ahead and hit present again, and just we'll move it ahead to what slide we were on. I can
Well, I
do
think
that
we
for
were on
you.
slide 2.
Yeah, you were on verse 33, talking about the reason God was breaking up
Here we go,
Israel.
right there.
Yeah, here we go. Okay. All right. So we need to kind of skip ahead a little bit because, well, anyway. So the elders came to Rehoboam and said, "You need to back off." And his buddies said, "No, let's not. Don't back off." And I always have to humanize some of this stuff as if I were one of these people. And I'm thinking, okay, these, his buddies were going, hey, if old Rehoboam continues taxing, maybe some of that money will come our way. So, otherwise, why would they have said keep trucking? Anyway, okay. Let me see. The king didn't listen. And verse 15, let me see where that is. Solomon died, Rehoboam reigned. And so Rehoboam goes to Shechem, and I think I have a map of Shechem in here.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Shechem is right here. If you'll notice, this is a map of the entire nation of Israel. This
Mm-hmm.
is Judah down here in the green, and this is Israel, or the lost 10 tribes, if you will,
Yeah.
who become lost later on. And Shechem is real close to the capital of the northern tribes, which is Samaria, right here. And so he goes to Shechem, and let's see here. Here's where they ask him to back off, and I'm not going to read all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the king did not listen to the people. We know that, and
Yeah.
to your own tents, O Israel. And it says, but as the sons of Israel who lived in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. So you had the two tribes in the
Mm-hmm.
south, Judah and Benjamin,
Right.
and many or most of the Levites. I'm not sure which word is more proper. Some of the Levites stayed in the north. They didn't last long.
Yeah.
Because Jeroboam wanted his own people in. He wanted to be able to control everything, including the religious. So let's see. The next verse is 11:37, and here's what God said to them through one of the prophets. Verse 38: if you will listen and do what I command you and walk in my ways and do, so this is kind of what he said in Deuteronomy.
Mm-hmm.
If you do what I tell you, good things are going to happen. If you don't do what I tell you, you're not going to be happy. And he actually told Jeroboam, if you lead the people and you do what's right, I will build you a sure house as I built for David. Now, he's not replacing David. He would have his own house in the north.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, David, the line all the way down to Jesus Christ comes from Judah down through David and all the way to Christ. But he tells him, and I thought that was kind of interesting. He says, look, you do good, boy. You know, your family's going to reign up there in the north. But guess what? They didn't. Okay. Here's a map of the entire 12 tribes, and I apologize for the resolution. I thought I had a good resolution, but
yeah,
you can see the names of, there's Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh. Manasseh was a big tribe. Ephraim, Gad, and so on. So that's the okay. So in 1 Kings 12:15, the king didn't listen to the people. He said, no, we're going to keep taxing you all. And then this really made Rehoboam angry. And so he gathers 180,000 warriors to go up and fight.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have a civil war like we had in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And God says, no, 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 you're not either. He sends Shemaiah. It's Hamai. Okay, the prophet Shemaiah, and this is another prophet that he comes in, he says something,
Yep.
and he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And God told him, speak to Rehoboam and say, no, there's not going to be a civil war between you all. And so, Rehoboam listened to him. And so here's one that I had forgotten about, because don't we kind of look at Judah as being the good brother, at least for a while, for
Mm-hmm.
100 years or so?
Right.
No. He says right off the bat, when the kingdom of Rehoboam was established, he and all Israel, which would be Judah in this case,
Mm-hmm.
with him forsook the law of the Lord,
Mm.
or the law of Yahweh. And it came about in Rehoboam's 5th year, because they'd been unfaithful. He was attacked by Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And then Shemaiah came to Rehoboam, and he said, thus says Yahweh, or the Lord, you've forsaken me, so I've also forsaken you to Shishak.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to attack you all. So
Hey, if I could just stop you there, Skip, that's a pretty heavy statement there. Just in general, when we think of our relationship with God, and some scriptures I won't get to, but that tell us that once you start down this road with me, if you're in covenant with me, whether it's the new covenant, the old covenant, whatever covenant we're talking about, God does hold us accountable, right?
absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely. And it's rare, but look what happened here. So the princes of Israel and the king humbled themselves. You don't see that much. And said, Yahweh is righteous, or the Lord is righteous. And when Yahweh saw that they humbled themselves, the word of Yahweh came to Shemaiah and said, hey, I'm not going after them this time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to grant them a little bit of time, and my wrath will not be poured out on Jerusalem, because he's talking about Judah. He's talking about the southern tribes.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, as you just said, Mike, there is a price to pay. And the price in this case was that Judah became slaves to Egypt. You can see
Mm-hmm.
in verse 8 that they will become his slaves, so that they'll learn the difference between my service and so here we
I
go.
guess they to let them know they used to have it good before they were.
Yeah, and I the scriptures in Kings and Chronicles, and I'm going to try to avoid this, bounce back and forth between what's happening in the north and then a scripture about what's happening in the south. And then we get 2 kings, one from the north, one from the south, that have the same names. And I mean, your head is spinning. And I'm going to try to avoid that as we go through this. And so we keep coming up with these books. We keep reading about these books. The Acts of Rehoboam, aren't they written in the records of Shemaiah?
Right.
Well, they may be, but we don't know where that book is.
Right.
And they say that about almost every king.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his acts or somebody's acts are written in the book. And sometimes you have a little teeny piece of it in Chronicles or Kings, but
Yeah.
most of the time, we don't read any of it.
So
But
Shemaiah was a writing prophet. We just don't have his writings with us today.
yeah, good point.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of the Bible, the people who the writers, they draw from other sources always. So I imagine some of this, what he said and all, was probably drawn from his book right there.
Yeah, there'll be some historical writings.
Yeah.
You don't know whether to depend on them or not.
Mhm.
There are some pretty famous historical writers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
one problem. I'm doing a little research on pseudepigrapha and apocrypha, Skip, and what you find is there are some old books mentioned, like in the Bible, like the Book of Jasher, but the Book of Jasher that's out there on the internet today and that people are buying and reading is not that Book of Jasher
Mhm.
that is mentioned in the Bible.
interesting.
Yeah.
Some people saw what the Bible was saying and they wanted to lead people into their own particular opinions on things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you have to be really careful as what you're finding out in doing your research. The Book of Enoch is quoted
Mhm.
in the New Testament a few times, and I'm assuming those quotes are accurate.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm going
But
to
I
do
think
a
if God,
sermon on that on Sunday. I'm
yeah,
not going to get into all that right now.
yeah, if God wanted us to have those books, we'd have them. So we got what we need.
yeah, you threw me, Mike, when you said on Sunday. Are you
I mean, Saturday.
okay? Okay.
Thanks, Skip. Thank you.
Yeah. Mike is converted over. All right.
Yeah, I thought you and I've had some talks about that. I thought maybe you had misstated.
Hey, thanks
Um,
for catching me, man.
yeah, no problem, no problem. So Rehoboam died, and we've got a book written about him somewhere, but of course, we don't see it. And here is uh, okay. This is the map again of the northern and the southern tribes, and this is around where we're talking about right now is around 900 BC, and it's about 50 years before the first writing prophet. Although you've already corrected me because Shemaiah was a writing prophet, we just don't know where his book is.
Yeah.
So there's three little words, and I think I mentioned this last time. I mention it just about every time I speak to somebody. Three very, very, very important words in Bible study are "I don't know."
Mm-hmm.
And our church for a long time refused to say that. The leaders of our church, they had an answer for everything. And boy, did we get in some messes because our leaders couldn't say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, all right. So let's visit with Jeroboam for a little while. He's the one that created the problems in the north. And so we're going to talk about the north a little bit. He wouldn't listen to God, and God had told him from the very beginning. He told him in verse 1138, what I think I read this or had it up a while ago. If you'll do right, I'm going to build you a house. If and the opposite of that is if you don't. So Jeroboam built Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim. Remember, that's where he went, or that's where Rehoboam went
Mm-hmm.
to announce that he wasn't going to back off on the taxes. And Jeroboam said this. He said, "Okay, now we're in the north. Judah's got the temple, and so everybody's going to be wanting to go to the temple to
Mm-hmm.
worship on the holy days and the Sabbath and different things. And if they do, the kingdom in verse 26 is going to return to the house of David. I don't want that to happen."
Mm-hmm.
He says, verse 27, if this people go to offer sacrifices in the temple, then the heart of these people will return to their Lord, Rehoboam.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll kill me and they'll return to Rehoboam. So, like any good king would do, he went and made 2 golden calves
Mm.
for the people to worship. Now, like if you talk to someone who goes to a church that and they have a lot of a lot of a crucifix or
Yeah.
whatever, you see that kind of stuff, they will tell you real quick, we're not worshiping that. that's just a symbol. We're worshiping God, and that's basically what Jeroboam is doing here. I'm going to put these two golden calves up and said, look, it's too long a trip for you folks to go down to Jerusalem. These are your gods that brought you up out of the land of Egypt. What was the first thing they did when Moses was up on the mountain? They built I love what Moses' brother Aaron said. He said, I don't know. I threw this gold in the fire and out pops this calf.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. One of my favorite verses in the Bible.
Yeah.
Gary Kellum says it takes two golden calves now. Yeah. So now, do I have the map next, or is this? No. Oh, use my mouse. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just want to get to William's comment there. The book of Enoch is not quoted in the Bible. There are some who think it is, Skip, but what I'm looking at is that Enoch is quoted in the Bible, but I don't believe that the book of Enoch is quoted in the Bible. So just
Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
get
That's
to
in Jude,
William's.
right? And Jude is
Yeah,
quote.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I stand corrected. At least I preach on the Sabbath and not on Sunday.
Yeah.
None of us are perfect, Skip. Yeah.
Okay, now look here in this map, and I don't know if you all can see it. Here's Dan way up here at the very tip top of the northern tribes, right here, and then here's Bethel, almost on the line between the two nations. And it was Jeroboam's plan to get the people either going to the north or going to the south, but not going down to Jerusalem. Now, most people don't know this. There are some little tidbits that God has given me that He hadn't given other people, and that's Jeroboam was a skier, and so he wanted to change the date of the Feast of Tabernacles to a month later, so there'd be more snow. And I'm kidding. There's a lot of people on here that don't know me. Sorry, I have a crazy.
Although it does snow every once in a while there, right?
Yeah. So Jeroboam changed the date of the Feast of Tabernacles to the eighth month instead of the seventh, and there are indications that he may have changed more than that. We've speculated on that for a long time. Mike?
Hey, yeah, Skip, I'm looking at Blake's comment. I know you don't want to deal with Blake Silverstein, but he's got an interesting comment here saying that once the theocracy ended, things started to go off the rails in a sense. And would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Israel, they had asked for a king. I skipped over all that. And either Nathan or Samuel, I can't remember, one of them said, you're not going to be happy about this, guys. You think you want a king. You really don't want a king. And so that's what Blake's alluding to, I think. They had a theocracy, and they said, we don't want a theocracy. We want somebody we can see out there.
Right.
Which is really kind of interesting because they had a king. They had the greatest king that exists, and that's God. He was their king, and they said, "No, we really don't want to listen to you."
That seems to be a theme in the Bible going back to the beginning, right? He's there and they don't want to listen to him. He's back with them in the nation of Israel and they don't want to deal with him. He comes again and he tells us, hey, here I am, and people move away from it.
That's exactly right.
I see there's like parallels with our country in a way, like since we've given up God, which I think the country has, we're going haywire. Just like Israel.
I think there's no doubt. We've been going through this study on ancient Israel for a little over 2 years, and the more we get into some of these books, Zephaniah in particular, the more we study these minor prophets and some major prophets, the more you hear today's world, maybe even United States of America, but
Mm-hmm.
it's sounds like what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 30, talking about Jeroboam changing things and putting the calves at the north and the south, says, now this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship one as far as Dan, a pair, and he made houses on the high places and priests from among all the people who were not the sons of Levi. Now, some translations say the lowest of the people, and it may be that's the same thing, but he made priests who were not the sons of Levi. What did God say to do? The Levites are the priests,
Mm-hmm.
and Jeroboam said, I want the priests answering to me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to replace them. So then he talks about the feast in the 8th month and the calves that he put in Dan and Bethel. And what happened in the north, a lot of the Levites said, I'm not putting up with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking this country in the wrong direction. I'm going back to Judah. And that's what happens here in verse 14. For the Levites left their pasture lands and their property and came to Judah and Jerusalem. Why? Because Jeroboam and his sons had excluded them from serving as priests to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
They knew what God, and anyway, it says he set up priests of his own for the high places, for the satyrs, and for the calves which he had made. And I've got another scripture on this satyr thing here in a minute. In verse 16, it says, everybody who was in the north, who set their hearts on seeking the true God, left and went back to Jerusalem. So basically what you've got in the north are a bunch of people that don't want to listen to God.
Yeah. So I think that's from all tribes, right? Basically saying that some from all tribes went down to be part of Judah.
Yeah. Some from all of the tribes are in Judah.
Yeah.
All right. And in 2 Chronicles 11 says they strengthened Judah. These people that came down, they came down, they wanted to worship the true God. And they supported Rehoboam, even though they didn't like the taxes, but they still supported him. And I haven't figured out this 3-year thing. Do either one of you all or anybody online know why the writer of Chronicles would say they strengthened the kingdom and supported Rehoboam for 3 years? For they walked in the way of David and Solomon for 3 years. Mike, you got something?
I'm wondering if they came back down to Judah. I'm thinking that they realized, hey, they're doing some things different up here, and maybe that's because they did believe and wanted to follow Yahweh, and maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah. But you use those 3 little words. I don't know.
Yeah.
And you're right. We don't. It does. All it does is it tells us that they walked in the way of David and Solomon for 3 years. Okay.
Yeah, but we know that God was not happy with what they were doing with those calves up in Israel. He was not happy changing it to the 8th month. So that kind of tells us that if we try to worship God our own way, not the way that God has, he may not be happy with that.
That's right. That's exactly
right. Great point, Jeff. That's a recurring theme throughout the Bible.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, I'm trying to stay awake. One of the drugs that I take for my angioedema is Benadryl, and you all know what Benadryl does to you. So I'm sitting here half asleep. So if I say something wrong, it's because I'm sleepy, and it's Mike James' fault.
Okay, don't worry. William is keeping us on point with his comments in the chat box, so that's okay.
Yeah, that's true. Leave the priests were the family of Aaron, and I I incorrectly interchanged those, but yes, I agree with you 100%, William.
That's okay, Skip. I was thinking I was preaching on Sunday, so
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I told you we'd come back to this sadder word here in a minute. In the NASB, which is what I've typically been using today, says that Jeroboam set up priests of his own for the high places, for the satyrs and for the calves, the golden calves, which he had made. Well, the complete Jewish Bible, which I like that translation,
Yeah.
um, he says he had appointed for himself Kohanim, which the word means priests, for the high places, and for the images of goat demons.
Mm.
That's what a satyr is. We've seen the mythological creatures of a half goat, half human. And anyway, that's
and you know what's interesting about I did a little research on this goat concept, Skip, just because when you look at modern witchcraft, and I used to be into some heavy metal music when I was younger, and the iconography, the pictures that are used, that goat symbol has been around for millennia.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's something, you know what? If you see like a skeleton of a goat, I don't know. There's something scary looking about that. So that's maybe they.
Yeah, it is. It is. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right, Jeff. There's something spooky about that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen the skeleton of a goat, but I'll look it up after we finish. Okay. All right. So here, Jeroboam's really going to get in trouble here in just a second. So Jeroboam went up to the altar, which he had made in Bethel. Now remember, Bethel is the southern golden calf. It's almost right on the border of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And he went on the 15th day in the 8th month. So we know what this is. This is his holy day, if you will. Well, you can't say holy day. It's his first day of his feast, even in the month which he had devised in his own heart. He's made it up. And he instituted a feast for the sons of Israel and went up to the altar to burn incense. And you all probably remember the cartoon. You remember the dog. It's a rut row.
Yeah.
Well, this is a rut row.
Yeah.
Right here.
Scooby Doo rut row.
Scooby Doo rut row.
Thanks for pulling that one out, Jeff. I knew I heard that, but I couldn't remember the character.
Yep. So here are some of the things that Jeroboam did that got not only him in trouble, but got his people in trouble. You mentioned about a theocracy a while ago. I suppose what they had in the north was a theocracy also, only it was not the true God theocracy.
Goat demon theocracy.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good thought. So here's what some of the things Jeroboam did. He made 2 golden calves. We've talked about that. He caused or allowed the people to worship the calves as representatives of Yahweh. He made houses on the high places for worship. He made priests from families other than Levi. He changed the dates of the feast, and I've got these are my words, and possibly other holy days, maybe the weekly Sabbath. It's one of those we don't know things.
Yeah.
There might be some historical information about that. Have either one of you all run into that? It's not in the Bible.
Run into what, Skip? I'm sorry.
Where Jeroboam changed the Sabbath or other feast days.
Yeah, I haven't run into that, but I mean that I get why you might think that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what really got him in trouble. Not that these other things weren't really bad. Number one's pretty bad, but he went to the altar in Bethel to offer sacrifices himself. Hello. You don't do that, Jeroboam. It has to be descendants of Aaron or a Levite. I guess the priests are the ones that descendants of Aaron are the ones who get all the sacrifices.
But he's got fake priests, and he's got goat demons and calves and sacrifice. I mean, that's definitely just like Mike would say, kind of like a heavy metal concert going on there in the temple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
hey Skip, there's a response from Life Lessons on the possible answer to the 3-year thing from Chat GTP.
okay. So you know, are you? I'm talking to Life Lessons. Are you thinking that's they didn't support him after the 3 years, because that could be what's going on
Mhm.
uh, in the South. Okay, but thanks. Good thought. All right, let's see where we are. All right, so for some reason I put the map here. Let me see if I can figure out why. Okay, I think it was just to show again. Here's Bethel. This is where Jeroboam went
Okay.
to uh, to offer sacrifices,
It's
and
kind of near the border, right?
yeah, it's
Okay.
almost right on the border,
So,
Okay.
because there was the southern, you said there was a southern altar and a northern altar.
and a
That was
northern
the other one.
altar.
Okay.
Exactly.
All
Okay,
right.
so you know, I can't help but wonder, or I'm just going to flat out say that I think the reason he chose Bethel is because it was close to Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so he wanted the people coming to his worship services. He didn't want them to go back to Jerusalem. So God, as He is wont to do, I never have figured out what want means, but it means as He typically does.
Mm-hmm.
As He was wont to do, God says, "Hey, Jeroboam, I'm not real happy about this." He sent him another prophet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, behold, there came a man of God. You get his name?
No, that's
He's just a prophet.
I think
Uh,
is that the man of God who was eaten by a lion later on?
Yep,
Yep. All right. Yes.
yep. Uh, Now, therefore, there came a man of God from Judah. Okay, so God has sent this prophet, unnamed, from Judah up to where Jeroboam was.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeroboam was standing by the altar to burn incense. And so, um, in verse 2, and this verse did not mean as much to me before we did our study of ancient Israel,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not going to pull the timeline back up again, but one of the few good kings in Judah was a guy named Josiah. And so this is a prophecy years before Josiah was born, that this unknown prophet says he cried against the altar, and he's talking to the altar. And he says, a son is going to be born to the house of David. He's going to be a descendant of David. His name's Josiah, going to be Josiah. And he's going to sacrifice your priests
Mm-hmm.
and the priests of the high places who burn incense on you, and human bones shall be burned on you. And Jeroboam, then he went on, and he said, this is the sign. The altar will be split apart. The ashes on the altar will be poured out. And so when the king heard this saying, he cried, seize that man, stuck his arm out, pointed his
Yep.
finger at him. But guess what? He couldn't.
Yeah.
He had arthritis suddenly. He couldn't bring his arm back in. You
Yeah.
know, how would
It
you like?
sounds like it withered or something, like it dried up and
Yeah,
got all this nasty looking. Is what I
yeah.
imagine.
The bottom line here, but his hand, which he stretched out, dried up so that he couldn't draw it back to himself.
Mm-hmm.
Be hard to sleep this way. Be hard to do much of anything this
Yeah.
way. You know. So what he had prophesied was that the altar split apart, the ashes were poured out, just like the man of God had said. And so the king, you know, isn't it interesting that you don't want to have anything to do with God till you get in trouble? And it's, oh, Father, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And even Jeroboam, as bad a guy as he was, as much of a non-worshiper as he was, in verse 6, he said to the man of God, please ask your God and pray for me that my hand may be restored to me. Now, it may be that he could pull his arm back, but he couldn't use his hand. But I don't know. I just have this image in my head of his hand his whole arm being stuck out. So the man of God asked Yahweh,
Mm-hmm.
Father, please restore the king's hand. And it became as it was before. So Jeroboam changed and he started worshiping God. Everything was fine in the north, right? No. No. Okay. So now here's what you were talking about a while ago, Mike, and I'm not going to read all these scriptures, but basically the king said, and this is something that's interesting, I think, about First Kings and Chronicles. Many times they don't name the king. You got to go figure out now which king is he talking about.
Yeah.
It says the king.
Yeah.
Well, we know right now this is talking about Jeroboam, but we're fortunate to know that because this just happened. So Jeroboam said to this prophet, come back to the palace with me and take a shower and clean up and I'll feed you. And the man of God said, no. Verse 9, God said, don't go anywhere, but come straight home, but don't go by the same route.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few examples in the Bible where you think, well, why is God so specific about, why is it a big deal?
Yeah.
What's the big deal of going and eating at the king's place, or the guy who was trying to catch the ark when it was falling? That scares me, Skip.
Yeah.
When I think about God and how he is in some cases in the Bible, that he's specific and he wants you to follow it to the letter.
Yeah, and I think with this prophet here, God told him, whoever God spoke to him, an angel or whatever, God told him specifically, don't do this, that thing. So he
Good,
kind of,
good point, Jeff.
if God comes to me directly and tells me not to eat or drink, I'm not going to eat or drink.
Yeah.
I mean,
now, you're exactly right, but guess what? That scripture's not in there's nowhere where it says, and God said to. We know that's what happened.
That's what he said. That's what he said that God told him.
What he said, but
Right.
It's not written down. We don't have a scripture. So God, like you say, how did God tell him?
Well, we do have the old prophet who prophesied against them later.
True.
Saying that you would disobey God.
Well, we do have a little information in Scripture about how God would communicate with prophets, though, right, Skip?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So we can make some assumptions, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I looked for the specific scripture.
Oh, yeah. I got you. No, I agree with you. I agree. I got you there. Yeah.
All I know and all we know is, God told him this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know about you all, but I check my emails almost every morning to see, I'm assuming God's going to send me one of these days and say, all right, so here's what you need to do. But I haven't seen one yet. I have not gotten an email. Anyway, so here's what happened, as Jeff was talking about earlier. God said, look, don't go home with anybody.
Yeah.
Don't eat anything. Go home by a different route.
Mm-hmm.
And so initially the prophet said, I'm going to obey God. I'm going to do exactly what God told me to do. But there was an old prophet, which we don't know who that is either, who lied to the young prophet. And so he tells his boys, go saddle a donkey.
Yeah.
And
not only lie, he hears about the story of what happens at the altar. He's like, I got to go find this guy.
Yeah. and for some reason, he lied to him, and it cost him his life. Not the old prophet, but it cost the man of God. He said, "Are you the man of God who came from Judah? Are you the one that God worked to straighten Jeroboam's arm out? Are you the one that prophesied against the altar and so on. He said, yeah. He said, well, come home with me. I'll feed you. And he says, I can't. God said, don't eat anything and don't come back by the same route that I went before. And the old prophet in verse 18 said, well, I'm a prophet too. Guess what God told me? Yeah. Mike, were you going to say something?
I'll say it a little bit later. Let me.
Okay. Guess what God told me? I'm a prophet too. And God told me to take you to my home and feed you. But he lied to him. Mm-hmm. And it cost the prophet his life. It says he went back and he ate bread in his house and drank water, which is exactly what God said not to do. So while they were eating, the word of Yahweh came to the lying prophet and said, you didn't do what God told you to do. Mm-hmm. And you've not observed the commandment which Yahweh, your Elohim, commanded you. Mm-hmm. And he says, God said, don't eat any bread, don't drink any water. So your body is not going to be buried along with your family. Mm-hmm. And verse 24 says, when he went on, a lion met him on the way and killed him. I doubt that that's a pleasant way to go.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. That's
lion tells him over the donkey too. So
that's true. Good point.
Donkey sat there watching.
Yep. Yeah, we just had a mountain lion up in Northern California actually killed somebody recently. Yeah. So
yeah, I think I read about that.
Hey, Skip.
Yeah.
When I heard the story, there's three things that come to mind when I hear this story. The first one is that a real servant of God, which I guess the man of God was, can fail by just a single act of disobedience, right? Mm-hmm. The second one is that a prophet of God can lie to you.
Yep.
And the third is that no new revelation or command from God will ever negate a previous command. So if God tells you something previously, he's not going to come back and negate it.
Yeah. Those are great points, Jeff. And I want to get into that one just a little bit. So he had heard directly from God probably, and then he gets what he thinks is information from God, but it wasn't direct. It's coming from this other source. And so we got a couple comments, and I'd like you guys to comment on life lessons, saying what's the what important lesson do we learn from this history, especially when none of us that I know of are leaders of any groups. And then Becky is mentioning that one thing she's getting from this story is relating to what she experienced with the apostasy in the church in about the mid-90s, when leaders within the church were telling the people, oh, we see it a different way now and it's okay. And they use sermons and they use philosophical ideas to try to convince people that, what we told you before isn't true. Listen to this. Do you guys see some correlation between that?
Skip, or I'll what I can say is there looks to be correlation. Because again, the whole theme is right. God has a specific way he wants to be worshipped, and if you don't do it that way, he doesn't seem to be happy with it. And back in then, they went from Sabbath to Sunday. They went from holy days to holidays. They just swapped everything out. Like the whole theology was twisted up.
Yeah, the God doesn't really mean what he says is a very dangerous line to take.
Yeah.
God has said from the very beginning, look, you human beings are weak. You're physical. You need a day of rest, and I'm going to give you one. and it's the seventh day of the week. I'm not giving you the third day of the week or the, first day of the week or whatever. I'm giving you the seventh day of the week to worship. I mean, to rest, and you make sense to worship on that day too. So it teaches us to listen to what God says and to obey what God says, and don't make up your own stuff. I'm about to get myself in trouble. Blake quoted something the other day, and I don't know if this was his or somebody else's, but I loved it. It was the millennium is 1,000 years of peace that we love to argue about and fight over.
That's very ironic. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where he got that, but I thought, you're right. Very ironic.
Mhm.
Very, very ironic. So I don't know if we've answered their questions or not, but I'm going on. It's a little bit after 12, and I'm almost finished, if you can believe it.
Okay, go for it, Skip. You got a couple minutes.
Yeah. All right. So in 1 Kings 14:16, the scripture says he will give Israel up. Why? Because of the sins of Jeroboam, who did sin and who made Israel to sin. This became a bylaw, byword saying.
Mm-hmm.
And when he says made Israel to sin, is it because he was the leader, right? I mean, that's what it's implying there.
Yeah, and he set the worship service up in the north. He set the worship service in the south.
Yeah.
He made non priests priests. He did all this stuff. He put Asherah poles up. He put Baal or Baal worship things around. And so I think there's 7 or 8 scriptures that basically say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the sins of Jeroboam in 1 Kings 15. I don't know what I just did. Okay. And 1 Kings 14. 16:31. It came to pass as if it had been a light thing for him, that being Ahab, to walk in the sins of Jeroboam. This idiot married Jezebel. And that tells you that Jezebel really created some problems. And I don't know if you all remember, but I did a thing on Prove All Things about the spirit of Jezebel, which is alive and well. And it was really alive and well. And in 2 Kings 3:3, he grabbed hold of the sins of Jeroboam. Howbeit from the sins of Jeroboam, the sons of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. I don't have to go through all of these. Those are the last scriptures that I have. I think there's 7 or 8 different times that we read that in the scriptures. And so God gave the northern tribes up because of the sins of their king, who sinned and who made Israel to sin.
It just struck me. I was reading something in Romans the other day. I think it's in Romans 1, where God gave them up to, whatever direction they were going. He just said, okay, go ahead. He does come in and step in at times, but sometimes he'll let you go. He'll let you go.
Yeah. Well, if I come, well, I know I'm coming back once. You've already told me a date.
Yeah.
If we continue this, we're gonna see very specifically how God finally gave up on the northern tribes, and He said, "Okay, I've had it with you people. I'm not putting up with you anymore. I'm going to let these guys from Assyria come down, and oh, by the way, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like what happens, and we'll get into that. I don't know, 6-8 months from now."
May 7th. May 7th.
Yeah, May
Oh,
7th.
that's down the road. You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. There's a lot,
That is
lots going
down
to
the road.
happen.
Yep. So, well, that's it for today. And I guess this is also just kind of an introduction. But
Yeah.
Jeroboam was a bad dude.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know what's interesting about you talking about that repetition of mentioning Jeroboam, and William is saying he thinks he's got 18 times that
Okay. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think Mike just kind of froze for a
Jeroboam
second.
made Israel to sin isn't a transitional figure.
Yeah, I didn't count them. I just went through and copied and
Yeah.
pasted some of the ones. But I mean, what's Jeroboam done? He put a couple of pagan calves, golden calves in the north and the south. So the people he replaced the priesthood.
Yeah.
He changed the date of one of the most important holy days, if you will. There's two holy days. Well, technically there's one, but we worship on two holy days during the Feast of Tabernacles, and he changed all of that stuff. And I want to look at Jeroboam and say, who do you think you are?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because he really got the people in trouble. And God finally said, I'm done.
Well, the thing that gets me is like if I'm a king and a prophet comes to me and I see an altar split open and I had a hand that was withered, that might be the point I repent.
Yeah,
But I guess it
I've
didn't.
wondered about that. When they see miracles, why doesn't that wake them up? And one theory I've heard, well, tell me what you guys think, is that back then they thought there were many gods who could do things like that. And so
Yeah.
once they witnessed it here, they thought, well, this other God could do it too. They just maybe hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
But they thought that could be done by others too. What
Mhm.
do you think about that?
Well, I'm going to jump ahead, way ahead in our study about Elijah. Um, he got into it with the prophets of Baal, if you remember, and all of that. And so here's what I think it was the king. He said, "Okay, here's the problem. Our God is the God of the valley. Their God is the God of the mountains. They
Uh,
whipped us in the mountains. We get them in the valley, and we'll whip them. Because they believe there were different gods.
mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, uh,
And we see with the Egyptian magicians, some magical arts were
Yeah.
done there, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there were some things back then that were manifestations of satanic power that maybe influenced some people. I don't know. Again, Skip, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't know. I don't know, but it does look like it, though, doesn't it?
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's what I've got for today, guys. I don't know if
Yeah,
there's
thanks.
another.
You generated a number of comments in
Yeah.
the block there, so that's
Yeah.
always good. Yeah.
All right. Well, appreciate you joining us again, Skip. And do you have anything you want to say before we leave today?
No, I hope this is the right direction to go. I know that our group learned a whole lot by diving in. We dive deep
Hmm.
at our home fellowship, and I chase a lot of rabbits. And uh, Michael Deering says that I have to use monkeys because they don't have rabbits in India, and two of our members are from India, so I have to say that I chase a lot of monkeys.
Okay. It'd probably be harder to catch a monkey than a rabbit,
I
but
would
I've never
think it
tried
would
either.
be, and they bite. Well, monkey would probably bite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be afraid to catch a monkey.
All right. Well, thank you, Skip, for joining us, and thank everybody out there for your comments and your participation. We're glad to have you watch Improve All Things live, and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah,
Goodbye,
this
everyone.
will continue with Skips. Will continue on May 7th for anyone who's interested. Yeah.
All right. See everybody next week.
Okay.